Welcome to the Void. We are going to go through a video by Arielle Scarcella, who, if you weren't here for the... oh, you can't see it anyways. If you weren't here for the last video we did on her, she has a tendency to disbelieve people unless they show a requisite amount of pain. The last video we did was a trans person, trans system, who the host was cis, but the headmates were mostly of the other gender, on the bimodal spectrum, so they were going to transition, and it was hard for them because that's a lot of loss of bodily autonomy, but it was good for them as a whole. Now, she didn't say anything bad about that person because that person was crying and upset and clearly showing that this meant a lot to them. That system, I mean. And that person. This video is something she referenced in there about how she doesn't believe everyone and how she thinks these people are faking it on TikTok when they are simply trying to exist and live their lives. So let's see what Arielle Scarcella has to say exactly in this video, and see if she deserves to be tossed back into the void where she can't hurt anyone with her mocking views. Let's go.
Hello, I'm Gabriel, I'm 18, and I am a boy.
Hi, I'm Alistair. I'm somewhere between 27 and 29, and I am a man.
Hi, I'm Emmy, I'm 6 or 7, and I'm a girl.
Hi, I'm Austin, I am 19, and I am non-binary.
So teenage girls
All right,
self-diagnosing.
pausing it before you yell at us about stuff.
Hi, I'm Austin, I am 19, and I am non-binary.
So I want to pause it here because I want to make a point here. First off, DID and systems and headmates, all of that stuff is real and valid. And you are free to explore that stuff and find out if that's you, because sometimes it can be something that's you can mask over. And I say that because we're going to go through stuff here, and I want to make sure that people know if this is you, it's okay for this to be you. If this is the kind of, if your brain works like this, that is 100% fine. That is valid. That is okay. And please investigate and explore it more on your own. It's not something that's scary or dangerous. It's just you have more friends that live with you all the time. The other thing I want to point out here is this is also a common experience I've seen with other systems where different headmates will have different genders and expressions. Everyone's using a different voice. Everyone has a different attitude when they speak. Everyone is, you can tell that they are all unique in their own way. And maybe you say, oh, it's just acting. It's not. I can tell you from personal experience, it's not. There is a bit of experimenting that comes with it when every headmate is trying to explore their own identities and figure out who they are. There's that happens, but that doesn't make it fake or unreal. That's just people exploring the space that they have. So right here we have a system with at least 4 headmates of different ages, genders, attitudes, and that's something that you might find. I haven't seen a lot of other systems with different ages, but I do know it's a thing that can happen. Different headmates can be stuck at different ages. There is, from what I've heard, a reputation that if you have DID, you likely have a little alter or a little kid alter. Not always the case, but that seems to be a stereotype, a trope in the community. So we will, I'll explore that a little bit more and get back to you, but I wanted to first say that everything you've seen here so far checks out. This is good. This is good content. Let's see what she has to say.
So teenage girls self-diagnosing themselves with dissociative identity disorder on TikTok is now a thing that has, let me check this to make sure, 1.3 billion views on the hashtag DID. 400.
All right, so before we get to the popularity, I want to point out something. Immediately what she did was misgender this system by, and likely the, and several of the headmates by calling this person a girl. They were not girls. There was one girl. The rest were dudes or non-binary. And from what I could tell, the host was a dude, was trans mask. Now, I could be wrong, but that's the impression I got based off the TikTok. That being said, she is immediately showing herself off to be transphobic and clout chasing because she's covering this based on the views and immediately like discounting it as in, this is so ridiculous, why is this even a thing? Before she even tries to understand it. But maybe she'll surprise me and understand it in a bit. This is only the first sentence.
186 million views on the hashtag DID system hashtags. So many of these people have different alters that like identify as different ages. Serious question, how do I know how old these people actually are? I don't want to be told.
They are telling you because the people are the headmates. The people are the different parts. Like, you look at a person and you assume that body is the one person. That's not how it works. That body is the host. It's the vehicle. It's like a car that has 3 to 5 to 30 people in it. And you look at the thing and you assume there's one driver. Usually there's one driver at a time, but the driver can switch. And each driver has their own identity. Each driver of the body, of the vehicle, whichever one, can be different ages. A teenager can drive in today's world. A senior citizen can drive in today's world. So asking this question is already showing she has no idea what she's talking about. Because if she had any clue about how headmates exist and who and what a headmate is, she would not be describing it in this way.
That I'm harassing minors. I'm critiquing people and their ideas. Don't want to be told I'm harassing minors though. Not about that life. Welcome back to...
You are harassing minority people who are simply trying to express themselves. And whether or not they are minors, I think that is the issue. That you are harassing people for simply being themselves. When you are... tell us you're a lesbian, and I believe you, and think it's okay for you to make fun of other people, because I don't know why. I don't know why you think it's okay for you to mock other people when you are part of a group that is being mocked here. You're part of the LGBT community, and you're mocking it. You make me sad, Ariella. You make me sad.
My channel, my name is Arielle, and I am the
Arielle.
non-leftist lesbian that your woke friends told you to hate. But you know what? I'm pretty sure that if you keep watching my content, you'll find that we agree on more things than not.
I hope so. I hope so, Arielle. There was a couple points in the last video that I saw that I agreed with you on. Hopefully I can agree with you more. I do want to. So far I haven't seen much reason to, but I do want to.
People are coming over to the dark side. Literally more people every day are subscribing to my channel. If you aren't already, click it now. One of the things that we agree on is that please don't go on any of these people's pages that I'm critiquing. This is not a breeding ground for bullying. It never has been. It never will. These videos are simply made to showcase what these people are doing and why it's wrong and how they are.
I agree with that 100%. Don't go to don't go to Arielle, and don't go to any of these TikToks and start like spamming them with messages. It can be rude and disorienting, and I don't want anyone to be doing that. So I agree with you here. There we go. I agree with you, Arielle. We did it.
Are perpetuating stereotypes and harming people that actually have these disorders. I
have not seen evidence of that yet, but that is possible. I'll reserve judgment. Let's see what you got, Arielle.
Those of you who don't know, DID is actually strongly linked with early life and childhood psychological trauma. I'm going to make sure I get this right. Dissociation is a psychobiological state or trait that serves as a protection in response to said traumas. Professor Bethany Brand was
No, let's keep going.
quoted saying, DID is an identity disruption indicated by two or more distinct personality states with a discontinuity state of self. The DSM-5 states that there are 5 different types of dissociative identity disorders, but the majority of these TikTok
Dissociative amnesia, depersonalization, derealization, other specified, and unspecified. So here we have the classic DID, which is just, that's the multi-personality, that's the switching back and forth. There's also dissociative amnesia, where the host may not remember everything they do, and it may feel like someone else is piloting their body, or they just aren't present for those times, and so they have no idea what happened. That is another issue that can come up. Depersonalization or derealization disorder is when you just feel like you aren't real, like you aren't in your body, like it's piloted and moving, but it's not you. It's very disorienting. Other specified dissociative disorders and unspecified. So these are the sort of garbage bin titles where, yes, there are these 5, but they are leaving it open for future research to put more stuff in there so that we can grow our knowledge and be more accurate and respectful in the future. So now we have an understanding of what these are.
Of course, are just focusing on like the easiest one, general DID. To be specific here, the main issue that people are having is with the self-diagnosis of this disorder. Once again, the people claiming to have these disorders are mostly female, young, white, usually emo looking, possibly queer and trans identifying as well. And these people are claiming that they do not need.
All right. I gotta pause it there, Arielle. I gotta pause it there. I'm trying to let you talk, but I gotta pause it there. Okay, so why? Think about why these people you would normally see on TikTok. There's a lot of social reasons that go into this. Now, these are not the only reasons. These are stereotypes and tropes and sort of cliches that build on each other and create a correlation. I'm not going to say it's causative, but it is correlated. That's my disclaimer. I'm going to explain why these people that she's going to talk about are mostly white, have alternative styles of dress, appear to be mostly AFAB, assigned female at birth, and what else did she say? Minors? Or at least young? Alright, so let's get into this. Why would they mostly be young? Why would they mostly be minors? Well, one, as we mentioned before, DID happens to you a lot of the time when you are young, because it happens when you're developing your personality and you go under intense or prolonged stress and trauma where you end up splitting or creating dissociative states as a form of defense against certain stresses. So that's why young people would tend to have it a lot. Why would you tend to see them? Because I'll get into that in a moment. So we have, why are they young? Why are they white? Well, actually I'll get to that one in a moment. Why are they perceived to be AFAB? Okay, AFAB, white, punk. Why are they perceived to be AFAB and out there? Let's see. Why would people who are socialized as women, who are grown as women, who are told that to be more emotional, more in touch with their emotions, more allowed to express themselves in ways where they can show weakness, Why would those people show signs of mental illness more clearly than people who are AMAB? Gee, I wonder, Arielle, could it be that they're actually allowed to express that stuff, whereas AMAB people are told that they have to bury that stuff and hide it and not express it and not be public with that stuff, especially on a platform like TikTok where everything is public. I've noticed TikTok, especially on a platform where everything is public, because that kind of publicity can come with a lot of social stigma if you don't fit the perceived social narrative. Also included in that is the fact that TikTok has a certain algorithm that promotes some activity and demotes others. So people who are of a certain type will see content that applies to their type. White people tend to see more stuff from white people. Trans people seem to see more stuff from queer creators. That sort of thing. So why are you a white, I would assume white, based on your name and everything, you assume Italian, but I don't know. Why would you see white creators who are assigned female at birth on TikTok? Because that's what the algorithm shows you. Now, as for why are they in alternative clothes, and why are they white, AFAB? Why are they white? I just covered that. Why are they AFAB? Alternative in style. That's what TikTok promotes. That's a very common style on TikTok. That sort of alternative, I do what I want and make it look good look. That is very much a Gen Z TikTok style. And I think it looks good. But if you don't like it, that's fair. You don't have to like it. It's just an aesthetic that works on the platform. There was something else I was going to mention, but now I've forgotten. It was white, female, or white, AFAB. I'm going to skip back and see if I can remember it. Just 5 seconds.
Usually emo looking, possibly queer and trans identifying as well.
Again, another point with this, trans people and queer people are more likely to experiment with their identities, and expression than a cis person or a straight person would. Simply by virtue of having to already do that work to explore themselves because of internal feelings and disconnections with what the stereotypes are that they have grown up with. So having done that work already, they are more likely to present themselves in ways that is counter to traditional narratives because they have reached a point where they are comfortable with that. That is why these people look alternative. That's why these people tend to be trans or queer or gay or whatever. These systems as well. Because they allow themselves to experience different forms of life, different ways of living, and let them they experiment with their own identity to try to figure it out. So these people who are trying to figure out who they are and doing all this stuff, they're going to look and sound and act different because that's what they're trying to do. You're right. And that's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing either. It just is. So don't paint it as a bad thing, or don't paint it as something to look out for when it's just a fact of who they are and what they're going through at the moment. Anyways, let's catch up on chat and then we'll get back to this video. Arielle has some nerve suggesting that she knows people's heads work better than the people whose heads she's talking about. Just you wait, Aragonette. That's going to be a consistent issue here.
And these people are claiming that they do not need a medical diagnosis. They simply declare to have the disorder and...
Arielle, the diagnosis is prescriptive. a self-diagnosis is descript. No, hang on. Do I have that backwards? A diagnosis, you can't have a diagnosis without experiencing symptoms. You can experience symptoms without having a diagnosis. It's possible to be, let's take lesbian, right? Let's take lesbian, something you understand. It is possible to like women and never have someone come up to you and tell you, oh yeah, you're a lesbian. Just had to hydrate. That does not make you any less valid because you don't have the words to describe it, or because you take on a label that doesn't apply to you. Let's say you take sapphic because lesbian hasn't been developed yet, so you just take whatever word you can have. Guess what? If you want to be sapphic, you're sapphic. Congratulations, that term works for you. And no one's going to come along and say, oh, you're just using that word. Hang on. She thinks that that you can use a word without being diagnosed with it. No one's going to come along and tell you that using the word sapphic is wrong because no one has told you it's okay to use that word. That is a self-diagnosis that you have done, and you have taken on that word. And then someone's going to come along and say, oh, but what about this other word, this other prescription that is the same thing, but now it's got a more up-to-date term. I feel like I lost myself a little bit there, but the point is, what she's saying with, they say they have it without getting the diagnosis, completely fine, because you have to have the symptoms and experience those what's going on before you can get the diagnosis. And the diagnosis is frankly hard to get because our medical system here in America sucks. And a lot of these people, I guarantee, are from America because she's in America and TikTok shows you people from around you. And so they're not likely to have a diagnosis unless they have really good health insurance, because therapy and the tests you would need to be diagnosed with DID are not quick and not easy and not cheap.
Then so be it. They have it.
I'd like to start off by saying that self-diagnosis is extremely valid.
Yeah.
Not every psychologist or therapist, especially in the US, has all this information on DID.
Let me be very clear here.
I want to be very clear before she goes. Yes, self-diagnosis is valid. Does it? It is like putting a Band-Aid on something, and that Band-Aid will help the wound. That Band-Aid is not like the antiseptic and going to the doctor and getting it dressed fully. Like, that is a better solution. But if you can't go and do that, putting a Band-Aid on it, absolutely fine and valid. And as long as you recognize that your self-diagnosis is different from a full diagnosis, but it works for you and you are okay using that and it fits, and it doesn't invalidate someone else's experience, then go for it. Self-diagnose. That is where I stand on it. I know there was a lot of discussion about it like a few years ago. That's where I stand. It's valid. It's real. Go do it. It's okay.
Very serious medical or mental, whatever you want to call it, condition that requires a lot of observation. Unfortunately, more serious cases of dissociative identity disorder result in hospitalizations.
Oh, here we go. First off, you're right, Arielle. It does take a lot of observation. You know what they are observing of those people? They are observing the symptoms that the systems who are living this out have already been experiencing. They've been experiencing it enough to go to the doctor and ask for this. They've been experiencing it enough to get to the point where they are being observed. They've been experiencing it enough to go through the observation process. They're experiencing it even when they aren't being observed because It is a 24/7 thing. You can't shut off your mental illnesses. So, yeah, it does take a lot of observation, and the people who live with it, they are constantly observing this stuff. So they have already done that observation. Do they have a medical degree in psychology? No. But they have a more intimate knowledge of their own symptoms than any doctor ever will, even if the doctors constantly observe them. Now she's going to get into some stuff about how it can end up with hospitalization and stuff, and this is more of that that fear-mongering about DID and how it's a dangerous disorder that can endanger the system or those around them. That is a harmful stereotype, first of all, because most of the time, if they end up in the hospital, it is through it is because of trauma and other issues that this disorder is resulting from, and not the disorder itself. DID systems with DID are not inherently dangerous, and painting it like this, where you just immediately jump to the most extreme example, is fear-mongering, and it is wrong.
Watching for possible suicide attempts. Many times they have to stabilize the patient to prevent any self-destructive habits.
Would you consider it able?
All right, I'm going to pause it here because, yes, you're right. And as we've discussed, DID is something your brain does when your brain is trying to protect you from intense traumas at a young age. And then later, when you're older and trying to process this stuff, it can be incredibly difficult and dangerous. And it can lead to intense dysphoria or dysmorphia or depression or anxiety or other illnesses. PTSD is common as well. CPTSD, complex PTSD. This is all stuff that is linked with DID. There's at least a correlation there. So yes, people go to the hospital to get help with suicidal and poor problems, poor habits. It's not an indictment on these systems. It is an indictment on nothing. It is just a fact of who they are and how they exist, that this is something that they have to constantly deal with and be aware of. This is like saying queer people are it is bad to be a queer person because queer people are more likely to commit suicide. That is a false correlation. That is using the statistics incorrectly, because the reason that suicide statistic exists is because there are people who are constantly trying to make those queer people feel invalid and not safe in their own bodies and with their own partners and with their own experiences. And so that can lead them to feel like there's no other way out, and they take actions that are dangerous. So she's purposefully misrepresenting the facts and using them in a way that, if we just change DID to something else, really just shows how ignorant she's being.
To be able to use something that people cannot change about themselves, like a disability, to your advantage when it suits you, and yet throw it away the second it doesn't suit your needs, even though others actually can't pick and choose? Because that, my friends, is exactly what the fake disorder kids of TikTok have been doing, while screeching.
Oh boy, I gotta listen to this whole thing, because she said something at the beginning that I cut off when I was going over this. I don't know who this person is or what their deal is, but this sounds really bad. So let's figure this out.
to stabilize the patient to prevent any self-destructive habits.
Got
Would you
this.
consider it ableist to be able to use something that people cannot change about themselves, like a disability, to your advantage when it suits you, and yet throw it away the second it doesn't suit your needs, even though others actually can't pick and choose? Because that, my friends, is exactly what the fake disorder kids of TikTok have been doing, while screeching that everyone else is the problem.
Let's take a look at the facts here. The majority of actual
So there wasn't.
dissociative identity disorder
Stop
cases
talking.
are aged 30 to 40 years old who have significant childhood trauma.
Okay. So I'm going to pause it there because, first off, the cartoon lady said nothing and was just being mean about the kids on TikTok. Secondly, what she just said, what Arielle just said, the fact that the people who get the diagnosis are in their 30s or 40s should be more an indictment on the medical system we have, that it takes that long to get a diagnosis of a disorder that starts in childhood, than it should be an indictment on these teenagers and 20-year-olds who are experiencing these symptoms and admitting that this is what they have. This is not helping your case, actually, Arielle. This is actually like pointing out a completely different issue. And to use it to disenfranchise people like this is just wrong.
And a long history of mental health issues. All dissociative identity disorders comes from severe childhood trauma, usually starting at around the age of 7. So yeah, not the typical 15-year-old TikToker who's emo.
Wait. Arielle, I have a question for you. What's bigger, 15 or 7? Now, while you're thinking about that, I know that's a complex question. Maybe you have to count, right? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We already hit 7. Look at that. Okay, we've hit that age where those symptoms can manifest, or at least those experiences can cause the disorder. So now we're at 7. Let's keep counting because we haven't hit 15 yet. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Look at that. You start to get trauma when you're young. And then when you're older, those symptoms manifest. It's almost like a linear perception of time. It's almost like this is a normal part of maturing and growing. You become more self-aware of your problems, of your issues, of your mental pathways. Wow. Wow. If only there was someone who understood this and wasn't trying to use backwards logic and an inability to count, apparently, to disenfranchise these people. Oh, but you would never do that, would you, Arielle? Never. Anyways, let's catch up on chat before we see what this guy's talking about. Let's see. And the official diagnosis can be dangerous to get depending on your doctor, family, or other circumstances. You are right, Aragonette. A diagnosis not only can be hard to get, but it can be dangerous because if you are in a situation where that could cost you your job, or it could put your reputation with your family at risk, and you kind of need your family a lot of the time, like it or not, that's an important support system people have. That can be something that can dissuade people from getting the diagnosis, especially if they have childhood trauma from their family, where they now have dependence on their family, or they're young and still are dependent on the very people who have put them in systems that are abusive and dangerous and cause them to have this disorder. Let's see. For things like autism and ADHD, self-diagnosis is exactly as valid as a doctor's diagnosis. Yeah, that's different because those two diagnoses, like sort of their symptoms interbleed so much, it's hard to tell. So a doctor saying you have one or the other is just as valid as you saying you have one or the other. This is like a discrete thing in and of itself. But I do appreciate what you mean by that. And yes, in that case, I agree with you. Requires observation. Guess who has or have been observing the subject literally always. Exactly, you made my point, Ericanet. Amber System, welcome to the chat. Welcome, Nor. Arielle Scarcella, hating on DID people. Cool, cool. These assholes always seem to find a new low to go to. You weren't even here for last week, Nor. Last week she was talking about this one this one system who had DID, who the host was cis, but the head enough of the headmates were of a different gender that they were going to transition, like medically transition, and the person the headmate the person who was out, the cis host, was very upset by this, but also very happy for her headmates, and she had nothing to say there, so she just completely changed the subject. So if she doesn't have something mean to say, she doesn't say anything at all. And that, I think, is even lower than what she's doing here, because at least here she's staying on topic. Arielle logic. Only older people get the diagnosis, therefore younger people shouldn't get the diagnosis, because the diagnosis causing the diagnosis to only occur in older people, and the cycle begins anew. It's not that we can't ever get better at diagnosing people and diagnose them younger, or people can't be more aware of this disorder and be aware that it exists and therefore acknowledge it in themselves. No. It must be that it's only older people who can be diagnosed. You're absolutely right. Now, let's continue and see what this person has to say.
On TikTok is so woke that they treat oppression and victimhood like currency on there. That's why you see people constantly inventing new letters in the LGBT alphabet.
Oh, okay, so we're going down this conservative anti-woke rabbit hole of people just making up things for their own comfort and identity. Just so you know, whatever he's saying is going to be gatekeepy and wrong, most likely. I can already tell from this approach. I don't want to poison the well too much, but the way he's going about this just is not unethical, but dishonest, because he's not coming at what these people are saying with any degree of even curiosity. He's looking at it and saying, this is different from how I have known it to be, and therefore it must be wrong.
And putting on new identities to try to spin a new way in which they're special or different or oppressed.
All right, listen. A few quick tips to not start dating someone who's faking DID. If they refuse to tell you where they're...
Okay. Sometimes I just have to pause to process. That was one of those times. Let's keep going. Let's hope this person is showing the emotions that I'm feeling. Because, oh boy.
diagnosed or they can't come up with it on the top of their head.
It says you don't owe anyone any personal information of when and where or if you were diagnosed. Recalling info is a symptom, and so is dissociative amnesia. Yeah, it's hard to get a diagnosis. It's hard to remember things when you have a disorder that literally causes dissociative amnesia and memories and time to be blurry. This kind of thing is... like, it's not a red flag. It is a literal symptom of our existence. So, thank you for saying that.
They're a liar. Don't date them. If
That's
they are
not
under
true.
the age of 50 years old and they have full control over their switches to the point of asking which one you want to talk to.
Okay, so what it says on screen is switches are uncontrollable, but there can be positive triggers to encourage certain people to come out. And yes, that's true. However, at least in our system, we can switch if, and there are caveats to it. We can switch at will if both headmates are willing, both headmates are out and present, which means not in their headspace, but hanging around in the thought space, which is just how we perceive our own head. There's when they go away and just are quiet for a time, and when they're out and like communicating with each other. That's the thought space. if they're out there and they agree to switch with the person who is fronting, a switch can happen. This isn't always the case. Sometimes there is stuff that can stop it. For example, I cannot switch if I am feeling particularly anxious or tired, as I seem to cling to fronting a little too hard. That's something I'm trying to work through, but that is currently something that I have to be aware of. And there are also times when, yes, we do switch without realizing it, and we have to take a moment and be like, wait a sec, who is this? When did I get here? There are triggers that we can use to help each other come out. I used to drink coffee to keep Marduk around because Marduk liked coffee, and still does. It taught me to like coffee. So there are things you can do to encourage a switch. But communication, I would say, and knowing each other well enough to know these triggers is good. It's healthy.
2, they're a liar.
Anyone else see the amount of projection in this TikTok alone? It's insane.
Projection? No, that was real experiences. What do you think is projection? Now I'm curious what you mean by that.
The hypocrisy here, of course, is that these are the same people that will call out people for cultural appropriation, which, stop. But of course, if you are...
Okay, hang on. So you're saying that these people who... You can't appropriate a culture, but you can appropriate a mental illness. Arielle, here's the difference between a culture and a mental illness or a mental disorder. A culture is a heritage that you are born into. Often there are physical aspects to that, such as skin color and hair and facial features that sort of associate you with a certain culture. And cultural appropriation is when people from outside of that heritage that you are born into come in and try to take on aspects of that culture without paying proper respect to its origins. That is cultural appropriation. That is bad. That is something that people can do without having to affect who they are. What you just saw was a person going through and debunking in a TikTok a criticism of DID. That is completely different. That is basically what I'm doing here, except in text replies. That's not projection. Mental illness cannot be appropriated in the same way either, because mental illness it can affect everyone equally. There is no distinction between people about who can and can't have a mental illness. It's random. There are factors that play into it, but just saying that cultural appropriation and expressing a mental illness are the same thing is so fundamentally wrong that it's not even funny anymore. It's circled back around to not be funny.
It's insane. The hypocrisy here, of course, is that these are the same people that will call out people for cultural appropriation, which, stop. But of course, if you are a 17-year-old TikToker who is obsessed with being oppressed, who better to diagnose you than yourself? Using your supposed sick brain and claiming that it can come to some sort of concise diagnosis.
First off, I just want to say that system looked really cool. Everyone had their own aesthetic, and I loved to see that. That was awesome. Anyways, where were we?
Diagnosis isn't making the sense you think it is. Also, notice how this is the same as being trans now. All you have to do is say that you're trans, and you're trans. All you have to do
already covered this. What she's saying is it's wrong. You can be trans if you want. You can be DID. Not if you want. You can be trans if you say you're trans and you experience. If you feel you're trans, That's it. I'm not going to dictate who can and can't be trans. If you say you're trans, you feel like you're trans, if you feel like you're non-binary, you are. Because if you're questioning it, you're probably not cis. Just saying. It's so weird to hear a queer person, a fellow queer person, use the same sort of homophobic logic of they're just making it up. This isn't really how it is. Against other queer and mentally ill people. It's kind of just sad to see. You're sad, Arielle.
That you have DID or a mental disorder, and you have it. And anyone who says otherwise is a bigot and doesn't have a say. I honestly
because you're using bigoted
why
arguments.
It's so easy for these kids to show their supposed alters. Like when dissociative identity disorder.
No, that's something I wonder about too, because I'm the only one of my system to like be comfortable being on camera and on voice and everything. But that doesn't mean. And I always look at people who are like, switch, caught on camera. I'm like, why are you exploiting yourselves for this just to show off something that's kind of, at least to us, deeply personal and like private. But that's them and that's their own prerogative. If they want to, if their system and their headmates all are okay with that, by all means. Each headmate has their own preferences. So, being on camera or not is a preference. Some people are. Sometimes a lot of people are. Sometimes people aren't. Especially if you're young and on TikTok, you're more likely to be impressionable enough to do it anyways. So multiple headmates in a system of people who are already on TikTok will probably end up wanting to be on TikTok.
Is itself a defense mechanism for projection. Listen to what this YouTuber who genuinely has DID had to say about this all.
And even then, if my alters are in a room full of strangers, because they're a defense mechanism, they're likely to continue to act like me. So it makes...
Oh, no, that's true. That's absolutely true. When we are door dashing, whoever is out typically ends up acting like me because I kind of have a customer service thing where I'm just like, yes, happy day. How would you like to... How can I help you today? Da 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 da. And so we do sort of default into that. But that is the customer service mode. That is the protection mode. That is safety. That has nothing to do with when you feel safe and want to do something and maybe you want to record yourself. That is a completely different issue. This has nothing to do with what the point you just brought up.
Makes it practically impossible for others to tell that anything is different or untoward. For example, could you say 100% that you're talking to Jess right now? Or is it just another alter pretending to be me?
I don't know.
Mystery.
The other big flag is that the majority of these girls that are claiming to have
Again, that had
dissociative
nothing
identity
to do with her
disorder
point.
are claiming that their alters are fictional characters, usually the same popular character within their friend group, cartoon characters, video game characters.
Just so you know, this is called a fictive, Fictive. I don't know enough to know where I stand on this. I know that it's something that's possible. I used to have imaginary friends based on movies and stuff. You know, I used to talk to Milo from Atlantis, but that was as a kid. I mean, it's basically just that. So for all I know, it's valid, it's real, good for those people. I don't know enough to have an opinion on it. So, but it is a thing that exists and I want people to be aware of that, and it has a name, fictives.
Fairies, trees, even animal alters.
Giving yourself up.
South Park fictives. Huh. Stan. Someone is really into South Park, huh? Like their system is has enough personalities based off of this show.
These kids are so...
Must have really had an impact on them growing up, and I'm glad they found something that makes them feel seen. Now let's see her screaming about how these kids are brainwashed or whatever she's gonna say.
acknowledge that they have to literally create issues to become oppressed.
I don't care if this was supposed to be a genuine question. This is full of ignorance.
Oh
First
boy.
of all,
So the question is, it's very very disrespectful, but I'll read it for those who are just listening or can't see it. Genuine question: when you are a dog, do you find other dogs attractive? I'm gonna let them take this on, but that is very loaded. Wow.
I am not a dog. We have a non-human alter in our system. He is a child. No, please stop sexualizing our alters.
Making any mental illness into a party trick, let's say, does nothing but harm actual people who have these disorders.
Okay, so here's the thing. At first glance, I agree with Arielle because I have a similar stance, a personal stance, but a similar stance on switches caught on camera, right? Like, I am uncomfortable. We are uncomfortable with that idea where we're gonna advertise. We're gonna switch on camera and advertise it as a way to draw people to our content. That's not something that we ever want to do, even though we have switched on stream before. But do I think it's harmful to the community? No, I think it's a good way to bring people in. It definitely draws eyes, and it helps people understand that switches are a thing that happens. It is a normal thing that occurs to people with these disorders. And just because I am uncomfortable with it, just because we are uncomfortable with it, doesn't mean I have to think of it as a bad thing. It just means I don't like it, and that's okay. So I disagree with where she's going with this, the fact that it's bad for everyone. I just agree with the fact with her opinion that it's not really, at least to us, in good taste. Hope that makes sense.
Stop talking for people that actually suffer from this. Whether this disorder is gender dysphoria, DID, Tourette's, anxiety. Yes, people are even faking having Tourette's on TikTok.
Oh, no, I've heard this drama before. No, they aren't faking it. There are different degrees of Tourette's. There are different ways of expressing the symptoms of Tourette's. The people who are expressing Tourette's on TikTok are doing it in ways that are not stereotypical, but that doesn't make their experiences any less valid. I am so tired of her disavowing anything that doesn't fit with her preconceived notions with this shit-eating grin on her face. Actually, that's a good face. Let's clip that for a thumbnail, because that's really good. Do. Man, let's catch up on chat. Let's see what chat's saying. Does Arielle have a lesbian license, or is she just lesbian because she said so? Why would being trans be different? Why is it there? That's very true. She doesn't have a license. No one told her she could be lesbian. No one told her she can be, she has to be lesbian or can be anything else. She just is. So yeah, no, that's a good point. Being trans or having DID, it all kind of ends up equaling the same thing. Move this over here. Where it's just she's disavowing people that make her uncomfortable. And there we go. How does she manage to say girl as if it's a slur? That has to take effort. Talking about these girls on TikTok bit. Because she looks down on people who express themselves openly and freely, And so we'll put all of that stank and all of that hate onto those labels. So, yeah, she's really good at sounding very condescending. This girl is really trying to speedrun ableism. You are not wrong, Arrogant. All of that stuff is very true. Alright. We got our thumbnail picture.
These days, young women are apparently even developing tics from watching people that have fake tics on TikTok.
The DI.
Are they developing tics, or allowing themselves to express things that they have been masking? Because I know as an autistic person, now that I'm living alone, I am noticing I shake and stim a lot more than I ever thought. Because for once, I don't have to mask around anybody. And maybe they're seeing these people and realizing they don't have to mask anymore. Or at least not nearly as much. Just saving the thumbnail picture real quick. Boom. Got it. And let's keep going.
The DID community is dominated by the same gender intersectionalist and anti-racist as well. One educator with legitimate DID was shamed off the internet for one of her alters had a Spanish accent and she was white. Another genuine case was shamed offline after she completed treatment after 11 years. She was deemed to have gone to conversion therapy and then accused of killing her alter.
Okay, I don't know about all of this stuff. I haven't heard this drama. I don't know enough to comment on this. Specifically any of this stuff. What I can say that the person who they're talking about now, that it sounds like what happened is there's a treatment out there for people who have DID where they try to fuse these systems, the headmates, back into one system, or back into one person, making them a singlet again. And that therapy idea is no longer viewed as favorably in the DID community because it does sort of eliminate everyone else and forces everyone to fit into one thing and can kind of lead to masking and stuff again. So I do understand the relationship that people are making, but the connection that people are making between DID therapy and conversion camps. I don't know enough in this situation to know if that's accurate or not. I know that people don't do that treatment as much anymore because of these concerns. So I'm not going to comment on this, but I want to just educate people that this kind of thing where what they are talking about currently, it does happen. It's not unheard of, and I don't think it's uncommon.
Now, as somebody who actually has
I don't even know who
anxiety
these people
disorder,
are, by the way.
I can tell you this is super harmful. Now, I'm all about destigmatizing mental health and encouraging people not to have stigmas against therapy and getting the treatment that they need. But when people start faking it for woke clout on TikTok, that is not just bad because it means they might end up in treatment that they don't need, but it's also an insult to people who are struggling with real mental health issues, and it actually belittles the entire cause of destigmatizing mental health in the eyes of the public when some of these people get exposed.
Let's talk about this. Okay, so being open about your mental health struggles on a platform and then getting likes for it, right? That's what's happening here. You are talking about something, whether it's true or not. You are talking about a struggle that you are professing to have on camera, and and the way that these algorithms work, they sort of focus you into one thing, and you can end up being famous or getting likes for talking about that one thing. If you have DID and want to talk about it because that is a major, that has a major impact on your identity, then that is something you should be able to talk about. what he's saying here is I've heard this argument a lot from people talking about like gender queer people going out and expressing themselves, and it can be seen as harmful. This is an idea that is bandied about by people who are typically older in the community, like this person appears to be. They seem to be a few years older than the average TikToker. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a fact. It seems to be from people who are older, people who have been through a lot or in the process of healing, and people who could be very sensitive about their struggles, and it makes them feel, when they see people just being so open about it, like almost invalidated, because they were never able to do that. So why are these other people doing that? They have to be, that this can't be real. This doesn't match their own experiences, so it can't be real. It can't be right, because that wouldn't make sense for them. And I'll admit, I had that period too when I was learning how to be trans. Learning how to be. I mean, I was struggling with accepting that I was trans and coming out. And it's okay to have those feelings. I totally get it. But what he's saying here is more of a reflection on, I assume, on him and his own experiences and feelings than it is on these kids on TikTok, because his feelings are about his reactions to what he's seeing, and these people who are putting this stuff out there, they're just trying to express themselves, and there's nothing wrong with people who have similar struggles expressing themselves and their struggles differently than how you did.
For faking it.
Oh my god, I forgot to tell you, they even created a new sexual orientation with all of this. It is called
here we go.
sexuality. It's when a system, which is somebody that has DID, is only attracted.
Okay, you notice that? You notice how she said a system is someone who has DID? No, a system is the body or the totality of everyone in the system. Each individual headmate is a person. You cannot reduce a system to a single person. That's not right. That's not fair. That shouldn't. What you just said was so wrong and incorrect. I said that twice. What she just said was so misrepresentative of how things actually are. Basically just showed her ignorance more than anything else.
Connected to other systems. Somebody else that has DID.
No, it's...
So now that we established how these
not
people
how it
are
works.
creating these identities and self-diagnosing, let's talk about why they're doing this.
Yes,
Why do these kids like the idea of being mentally ill, of being trans, of being LGBT, of having anxiety? Because to be honest, the only mental illness...
That's not what's happening. They like the idea that they can express themselves, not that they can be this way. Being able to express yourself and like talk about it is incredibly healthy and can be validating, which is good for your mental health. To say that they are seeking out these issues and trying to gain these issues like Pokemon cards is disingenuous and just... It's wrong, and you don't know what you're talking about, clearly, because that's not what's happening.
I see here is narcissism. And if we're gonna get deep for a second, I think if they're not narcissistic, the actual issue here is self-love. I think it always is.
A lot of this stems from self-love issue that we are currently seeing in society, especially among this current generation, because these kids, they don't necessarily know where they belong. They don't really have their identity. So when they find somewhere like the DID community or the trans community, for example, they will co-opt movements and they will say that they have it, even if they don't, because they think that society is going to cater to them now that they have this disability.
Most of these kids
No,
are at the
no,
age where
I have
you
to stop
start
that. No.
forming your
Hang
own
on.
identity.
Pause.
And they don't like themselves. In fact, most of them hate themselves. So they create all these other labels.
Okay, I have to go back. Okay, I don't know who this person is. I should look them up because they clearly have some really bad takes. No, what's happening is not young people are finding communities and inserting themselves into it. What's happening is young people are finding communities and being excited because for the first time they are finding that other people have similar experiences. And the thing is, young people have a lot of energy and can really hyperfixate, especially, I don't know, mentally ill young people who may have a variety of mental disorders that cause them to hyperfocus or hyperfixate on one thing. Maybe that could be a reason why these people are so intensely focused on this idea that like they are this because they feel seen and are now like hyperfixating on it. Possibly. It's definitely not that. It's definitely that they are just in it because they think they can trick people into treating them better. Honestly, if someone wants to trick me into treating them better, and it doesn't hurt me, and it doesn't hurt them, and it doesn't hurt anybody else, and they just want to trick me and say, oh yeah, can you just like hug me because I'm feeling sad right now? I don't mind treating them better. I don't mind them seeking out ways to be treated better because people deserve to be treated well. And there's nothing they have to do to deserve that. They just deserve that through nature of existence. So to say that people are seeking this good treatment out as a oh no, that's not good, as a bad thing, it's really just puts you in a bad light because you are not allowing people to experiment or experience different things and try to figure out who they are. How are people supposed to know about themselves if they can't try stuff out? How are people supposed to know if a gender works for them if they don't have the experience to be able to answer that question? Or how do the people know if they have a mental illness or not without being able to engage in the community and learn about it and see if their symptoms match what is being talked about? Just because things are changing, because communication's increasing and you're seeing more variety in how things are being expressed, doesn't mean your experiences or anyone else's are any less valid.
For example, they will co-opt movement.
The age where you start forming your own identity. And they don't like themselves. In fact, most of them hate themselves. So they create all these other...
You're right. You're right. A lot of people who have DID have a lot of self-hatred. It's almost like the people who have DID are people who have been through a lot of childhood trauma and learn to sort of accept and integrate a lot of bad thoughts and ideas into themselves and how to protect themselves through strategies such as amnesia or disassociation or creating alternate personalities so that they don't have to face what's happening around them. Wow. Could that wow, I'm sorry. Could that be it, Arielle? Could it be that people are just themselves and that you are ignoring points when it's inconvenient for your narrative?
These sexualities, these mental disorders, these fake personalities, instead of working and creating an actual personality. Here's the truth, guys. People that actually have these disorders...
Oh, trust me. People who have DID have worked on creating an actual personality multiple times over. Can you say the same? Because you clearly have an on-camera personality and what I assume is a different off-camera personality. At least I hope so. I hope you aren't like this off camera.
And illnesses don't want to be associated with these labels because, like myself, I have anxiety. I don't want to be associated with that label alone. I want to.
That's good. That is your experience, and if you don't want to be associated with that experience, that's fine. I'll respect that. That is valid. I won't think of you as someone who has anxiety. I'll think of you as someone who has really bad takes on other people's mental health. I think that's fair.
Be seen as amazing despite having a mental health condition, not because of it. I'm going to end the video on this note.
Instead of focusing on the pretend people in your self-absorbed life, maybe focus on the real ones who can be impacted by your stupidity and stop being a danger to society. I'm not saying you're not mentally ill. I'm just suggesting that your lack of consideration for others is awfully narcissistic, and it seems like a lot less effort for you to be entitled and arrogant than it is to pretend you have a fragmented sense of self.
Wow. Okay, that was incredibly devalidating, whatever that word is. Yes, Arielle, you should stop focusing on the pretend people around you and who are clearly not good for your mental health, because the people hiding behind these screens who are telling you things that you don't like to hear are just trying to live their lives. And if you don't like it and you think they're pretend, then just ignore them. Live a happy life and don't try to bring other people down and try to hurt those people because you don't like it. Stop being so narcissistic that you think your experiences are the only thing that's important, and therefore you get a platform to talk about why everyone else should just shut up and not talk about their experiences. Arielle really needs to learn some basic compassion for people who are different from her. That was Arielle. That was this video. If you have DID, if you have other disorders, and you want to talk about it, if this felt wrong to you, or if I messed up and said something wrong, shout your thoughts down in the void below. Let me hear it. I want to know what you have to say. Hit like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you for watching. The void loves you, and you are 100% valid. So, mwah.